Welcome to Biz Alchemy, a podcast about creating a new business paradigm by women, for women. I'm your alchemical host, Jacquelyn, and I'm going to take you on an extraordinary adventure to create a business filled with ease, fun, spaciousness, and abundance. Hustle, be gone. Let's birth a new way. I'm wondering if you have noticed the title of this episode, which is Lessons from My Launch. That is not my language. I would have called it Insights from My Invitation Period. But I figured if someone is new to my work, they might see Insights from My Invitation Period and go, what the hell is she talking about? And so I thought I would be maybe a tad more clickbaity and put Lessons from My Launch, because then everyone's on the same page. You know exactly what I mean. But that's the last time you're going to hear me refer to it as a launch, because it was my invitation period. So I'm going to share with you 3 powerful insights that I had as a result of the invitation period that I just went through, where I held my equinox retreat and then opened the playground for 10 days, Biz Alchemy Playground, my beautiful group. Now, this was a bit of an unusual invitation period time because I went away. So pretty much as soon as I'd opened the doors, I drove with my daughter down to Melbourne and ended up staying there 11 nights because of not being able to get back home because of the floods. And so it had quite a different energy for me than what it usually would if I was staying at home and in my usual routine. And maybe in some ways that has affected the insights I had. Yeah, probably did. But anyway, that's not really what I'm talking to today. So the first insight I had from this invitation period is something I knew beforehand, and I felt a little uncomfortable about it, but went ahead and did it anyway. Does that sound like the sort of thing I would tell you or suggest that you don't do? I kept umming and ahhing about it, and sometimes it felt good and then other times not so good. And that is that I offered 2 things at once. So I didn't just open the playground. I also opened my mentorship as part of the playground, as an extension of the playground, the Heart of Business mentorship. This was suggested in an energy session I had. And because I originally set up the playground to be my one thing, everything was going to be in the playground. So when this suggestion came up, it was like, okay, that works, because that is actually what I wanted. And really, ideally, I love the people being in my mentorship to be part of the playground. Like, it enhances the experience. So my initial reaction was, yeah, that makes sense. And then I think I went through a few days where life was quite full and I was feeling like, oh my gosh, how am I going to get this organized? It feels too much. And so I went off the idea. And then once I moved through that period and life felt more spacious again, I was like, yes, I'll go ahead, I'll do it. And so I had my invitation page redesigned to include the mentorship. But I did find it challenging when it came to talking about the playground, as, you know, during that invitation time, because I was talking about the playground, but then sort of adding on about the mentorship at the end. And in the end, 3 out of the 4 ladies who joined the Heart of Business mentorship were already working with me in some capacity, one-to-one, but wanted that group component as well. And the 4th one was working with me in the group component in the playground already, but wanted the one-to-one to be a part of that experience. So in many ways, those who joined were already in the circle of the playground in particular. So my insight from that was, well, in future, I will just talk about the playground and won't split my energy talking about the Heart of Business mentorship as well. And once the playground invitation period closes, well, then I can invite people in the playground into the mentorship. That's not happening till October now anyway, and who knows what other insights I'll have before then, how many times I'll change my mind. But that's what I've taken away from the experience this time. And it's something I'm usually very conscious of not offering more than one thing. I do it now and again, But, as I've heard so many times, a confused mind never buys. So just having one thing does simplify the process. It simplifies it energetically. So that was insight 1. Insight 2 was I sat with what part of the process doesn't feel aligned for me. I do a similar process each time I open the playground. Actually, there were a couple of things that came up, I'm just realizing now, that didn't feel quite aligned for me. But the one I was going to talk about, that's in my notes, was the emails that I sent out following the retreat. I sent out a replay of the retreat and an invitation to the playground. And then there were another 4 emails after that. So one talking a bit more about the playground, one when the early bird was ending, then another one with more details about the playground, and then one when the whole invitation period was closing. And that didn't feel good. That doesn't feel good. That's something I've learned from a coach before and something I've kept doing. And what I've noticed, interestingly, whenever I've had invitation periods, is that people buy straight away. Like straight away they know, yes, it's time for me. I'm going to join now. And they do that. And then there tends to be this gap. And then you get your last minute people like, oh my gosh, is that closing? I'm going to grab it now, even though they may have missed the early bird, but they've not been aware of that. It's just like, oh, quick time now. I've got to get in. And I don't feel that I need to be constantly drip feeding that the playground is open. And part of that is I have this thing about people taking responsibility for themselves. When a long time ago now, I don't know how long ago, when hairdressers and doctors started to message you to say, just a reminder that you've got your appointment tomorrow. That used to irk me so much when that started to happen, because I was like, I can take responsibility for myself. I've got it. It's written in my diary. And I think we live in a society now where that responsibility has been taken away from us more and more, to the point where we're actually dependent on reminders now. And in some ways, sending out so many emails, it's doing that. It's like, oh, remember I'm here, remember I'm here, remember I'm here. And sure, it could also be that someone doesn't open 3 of them and just 1. I get that too. But this is about me. I'm talking about me right now and what I feel aligned with. And I do not feel aligned with sending out that that many emails. There's a reason that I have a fortnightly newsletter, and it is so that I'm not in your inbox so much. And so that if I do want to share something extra with you, like the playground being open, well, that fills in that week in between, rather than ending up sending 2 or 3 emails in a week. Our inboxes are full enough. So my insight around that was simply, I'll send out the replay of the retreat and have the invitation to the playground in that, and then an email to let anyone who was at the retreat know that the early bird is ending, and then another email when it's closing. That feels really aligned with me. That I feel like I can share enough about the playground in that time. So that's what I'm going to do for next time. The other thing that I just mentioned then that sort of just popped into my head, which I'm going to sit with a little bit more, I time the opening of the playground around the seasons. So each equinox, each solstice. However, what I was aware of this time was that my invitation week was during my yin week in business. And that was just the way the moon was in relation to the equinox, because I always have my yin week in that week leading up to the new moon, which is a very inward focused time for me, a very still time. So what I will sit with for a little bit longer is, do I want to keep it seasonal, the opening to the playground, or do I want to have the opening at the full moon following that seasonal change, which means the retreat may not necessarily be on the day of the equinox or solstice, which then is like, well, hang on, that's the reason for it though. So I've got to sit with that a bit more. As you can see, I haven't got clarity around that yet, but I'm going to sit with it because as you know, if you've been following me long enough, I'm always so open to making changes. So that's one that I will sit with just a little bit more, because I think having the equinox retreat and then going into my yin time a few days after that just meant that my energy was going in. And yes, that is a receiving energy. But when we're sending out emails and things, there is some yang involved in that. There is some energy going out. So that's something I'm going to play with a little bit more as well. I certainly sit with and think about. I mean, it might even be that my retreats, I'm just thinking here on the fly, but it might even be that my retreats are not connected to the opening of the playground. It might be that I just do those retreats and then I have something else that leads into the opening of the playground. I don't know. I'm going to sit with it. Anyway, so that's the second thing, the emails in particular. And I felt like I was still bringing part of an old business model into my invitation period. I do still catch myself doing this stuff. I shouldn't say catch myself, because it's not that it's wrong, but I just have some awareness. Now and again, I suddenly have an awareness of, oh my gosh, I'm actually still doing that in that old way that I was taught, and I haven't really sat with the energy of it, and does it feel right for me now? So it's always good. We're always evolving. So this is why it's important to reflect on new products or programs that we've opened to our tribe and check in about the alignment of that whole process with us. Is there something that didn't work? Is there something that worked amazingly well? Anyway, number 3. Now, this is the biggie, and this is actually what instigated this podcast. And that is that I didn't get anyone join the playground this time around. I had a client who was already working with me who decided to become part of the mentorship in the playground. So that was one new person who was in the playground, but nobody else actually joined the playground. So this was an interesting reflection process, because firstly, I realized I'm actually really happy with the numbers in the playground. And I think even though, of course, it's fluctuating all the time, but the numbers there right now, which is about 36, I think, ladies are a part of it. There are probably 20 to 25 who regularly participate in the calls and in our Telegram group. But I feel really content with the numbers, with the contribution. And so I didn't, afterwards I was just thinking this. I was like, oh, was I sabotaging myself a little bit there? And then, of course, I momentarily went into my head to find the answers. It was really interesting to observe myself doing this. So as I just mentioned before, I was like, should I be opening the playground with something different to the retreat? Because running a retreat to open the playground is very different to, say, running a masterclass to open the playground. So it's a very different energy. And in many ways, it's complete unto itself, the retreat. So, of course, my mind goes, okay, should I do that, something different around that? Was I not clear enough in explaining the benefits? This is the first time I've only offered the playground for 3 months and not 12, which I thought would actually be more exciting for people because it was a shorter term commitment. So then my head's going, oh my gosh, maybe I should have kept it at 12. And then I wondered if my energy was too off, like whether I wasn't focused enough energetically because I was going away, because actually at the same time I was helping my daughter, who I ended up going away with. I was helping her move out of her house, get rid of all her furniture. So all that was going on at the time of the retreat. So I was like, okay, energetically, was I just not present enough? So my mind started to do this stuff. And this is often what we're taught to do when we review our launch or our invitation period, is to go through what could be done differently. But I don't want to do it from the mental aspect. I want to feel it. And I want to hear. I want to hear the guidance as to why. I don't want to use my mind to generate stories from the beliefs I have, which is what the mind does. The mind's just drawing on your experience up until now to come up with answers. I wanted to hear the guidance. So one day I went for a walk along Port Phillip Bay while I was down in Melbourne, and I said, okay, I feel like I'm being guided in something here. There is a reason that no one joined this amazing group of women. There is a reason for it. So I'm open. I'm open to hearing it. And it wasn't much further on. I was just walking, and then suddenly went, it just hit me out of the blue. And it was so clear. And it was, you're not doing anything wrong. Nothing needs to be changed. The playground is perfect as it is. The way that you're inviting your tribe into it is perfect as it is. They will come. Whoever's ready, they will come. But right now, you also have to put your energy into something else. And I knew straight away what it was. I was shown, really. It sort of just, boom, flashed across my mind. I saw the vision of it straight away. And it is opening a Patreon account and using that Patreon platform for my receiving work. As you know, I have been talking a lot about receiving this year, and I want to do a lot more because there is guidance coming through me around that, and I don't fully have a platform to share it. I include it in my podcast here, I include it in the playground, I include it in my newsletter, but it's an adjunct to the business energy that is my main message. I want a platform where it is just about receiving. So it doesn't have to be people who are in business, but of course, people who are in business are usually always wanting to open to receiving more. When I tune into the energy of receiving, I become very emotional. I know it's a part of my soul's mission to open more people to receiving the abundance that is available to us on the earth. I know that. I feel it right through me. And I require a separate platform where I can play with that, where I can channel, where I can use light language, where I can bring through meditations that are nothing to do with business, but everything to do with you opening to receiving more of everything that you require to live your soul's mission. And Patreon feels the perfect platform for me to do that. I can offer whatever I decide to offer for the month. Anyone who's interested would pay a small monthly subscription to receive what I'm offering there, the group calls, the meditations, whatever I decide to put on there. It's very much a place for me to play. And it's just a different outlet for me. It's an outlet that I can bring through this aspect of myself that has been birthing this year. And I feel really excited about it. And here's the thing. If I'd have had 4 or 5 people sign up for the playground this time, which is the number I would have really loved to have received, I wouldn't have had this nudge. I wouldn't have decided to listen to the universe to create this new platform for myself with this different message. Because everything would have been comfortable. Everything would have been ticking over nicely. Why do we have to go through some sort of discomfort, before we blossom? Why do we have to go through a constriction before we expand? I don't know. Anyway, that's what happened to me. And it was enough to make me stop and listen and ask, is there another way? Have I missed something here? So I didn't need to go into my mind and find all these reasons why I didn't receive the 4 or 5 ladies into the playground that I would have loved to receive this time. That would have been pointless. Instead, I went into my receptive mode and listened, the yin aspect of my throat chakra, and listened. And it just dropped straight in. And I knew it was right from the beginning. So I am going to have This channel, which will be called Jacquelyn Atkins, The Receiving Channel, is going to be open from May the 1st. So with Patreon, when you subscribe, your subscription comes out on the 1st of the month. So I didn't really want to start it on the 25th of April. So it will start on May the 1st. I'm not going to share any other details just yet. That can come later on. But I was so excited to share it with you and share with you that journey that led to this place, because I've seen so many people feel shame when their invitation period or their launch doesn't go the way they wanted it to go. It doesn't have the outcome that they desired. And as I always talk about in business, they're all experiences. They're experiences to guide us. And I'm not saying that there wasn't a tiny little voice in my head going, you can't get on your podcast and tell everyone that no one joined your program. I mean, it was pretty small, but it was there. And then I went, yes, I can, because I'm all about authenticity. I'm all about showing you another way to be in business. And the only way I can do that is to share my experiences with you. To share things that might from the outside or from other people's perspectives look like failures, but they're not. They're opportunities. And this opportunity that has opened for me really excites me. And I just can't wait to share it with you. So enough about that. I'm actually not really here to talk about the Patreon channel just yet, but I just wanted to let you know that that process happened. However, I have been sharing with a few of my long-term clients a receiving session. It's a one-to-one session. And from the day this podcast is released, this episode, the 12th of April, this session will be available to everyone. It is a 30-minute session, and you receive a powerful activation through each of the chakras, opening your ability to receive more. I gave a little taster of it in the meditation I shared, episode 67, The Key to Receiving, where I introduced you to the silver energy. But during the session, not only am I guiding and activating, I am sharing with you the yin receiving component of each chakra, which ones are requiring strengthening, where your power is in your yin energy. It's not only about receiving, that the silver energy I'm bringing through is not just about receiving, it is about awakening. It is about awakening you to receive new aspects of your soul's journey that have not come into your awareness yet. So it is just a 30-minute session, but it is very powerful. This session is $111, but as an introductory special, until Friday the 15th of April, you can get 15% off when you purchase the session. And use the code RECEIVE15, all uppercase. So if you are loving my receiving message that I have shared this year, if you are ready to receive these really pure new vibrations that are coming through to activate us as humans into a new place of receiving, then you might enjoy this session. So I'll put the link in the show notes, and you can also go to jacquelynatkins.com/sessions, and you will see the receiving session there at the top of the page. Click on that link and it'll take you to the blurb. If you're on my newsletter list, this week I'll be sending out a newsletter on Wednesday, and I will talk about it a little bit more in there as well. So thank you for being with me on this journey as I explore the insights from my invitation period. I hope that that has given you a new way to approach your invitation periods and to embrace that business is an adventure. There are many different experiences in this adventure. And if we listen deeply enough, if we open to receive, the guidance will be so clear that comes from every experience that we have. Until next time, have an alchemical week in your biz. Thanks for listening to Biz Alchemy. I'm Jacquelyn Atkins. If you'd love to know more about the energy of business, Subscribe to my newsletter at jacquelynatkins.com/newsletter and join me on Insight Timer, where I have a large meditation library and do regular live classes. Until next time, enjoy creating alchemy in your biz.